Hey guys, King of Triumphs here, your judge, your jury, and your analysts, and today I bring to you my top 5 teams for the Psychic Cup. Mind you, these are just top 5 teams. They're very good, but there are other combinations that work as well. The Psychic Cup is a lot of fun with Mew being banned, which was actually very smart. I've been literally crying for bans for a very long time, like specific bans that are actually really good for this cup, and the fact that they banned Mew for this cup is really freaking good. I will praise whoever made this cup because of the fact that Mew is a very smart ban, and bans should be made a lot more, not just typing, but certain mons that would really break the meta or just really inaccessible. So these are my top 5 teams for the Psychic Cup. I'm going to show you a bunch of different combinations here, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get started, this is going to be my therapist mental health tip of the day. And as usual, you could skip this by going 2 minutes ahead, then go straight to the teams, or there are chapters below in the description. There's a reason why I put chapters, so you can go and just skip forward, because some of y'all don't like this, even though it's free psycho education. And otherwise, if you actually had someone or a seminar, would take you hours or hundreds of dollars, where I give it to you, free psycho education, for totally free. Actually, it's literally just small, and then I have you guys look at the description below. But this is going to be about SMART goals. So goals, how do you obtain a goal? Since we're talking about the Psychic Cup and we're talking about Legend, this is probably the best time for you to make Legend. There are 2 Go Battle Days, there's a bunch of all these fun cups, and yes, even though there's a bunch of new meta move changes, there's a lot of these cups are not very outside of, I would say, the Weather Cup. These are very accessible. And there's a lot of things, there's a lot of neutral, there's no Hisui Cup, there's no Flying Cup, there's no crazy cups like those 2 that are literally like RPS cups to hell. So because of that, this is going to be a really fun season. This is probably the best time to make Legend. But this is the reason why I'm talking about SMART goals. And this is a SMART goals worksheet. Even in my own cycle, in my training, when you're making goals and we're assessing goals, actually for my solutions focused therapy training, because I'm a solution focused based therapist, that's my bread and butter. You need to make goals that are SMART. In other words, goals that are achievable, goals that are plannable, and are helpful in these worksheets are actually helpful in individual, group, and family counseling. So it could be the first step of goal planning and help with boosting confidence. So when you make a goal, it has to be SMART, and the acronym is very easy and good to understand. So a lot of times we set goals that aren't realistic, but they don't realize that until they're overwhelmed, but they don't realize that they're not realistic until they're overwhelmed with work. Because of this, it's important to develop proper goal setting skills when creating a plan for the future. And I'm hoping that this video helps you plan for the future for the Psychic Cup, and these are my top 5 teams for the Psychic Cup. After today's video, tomorrow will be actual practice videos, so hopefully these 2 videos help you out in planning for the Psychic Cup. And without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so for team number 1, we have Gardevoir Shadow as your lead, Bronzong as your safe switch, and Malamar closes out. For a lot of these teams, Bronzong is going to be your safe switch. You can use Bronzong, or another one that I've seen that's actually pretty decent is Galarian Rapidash. Those seem to be the 2 safest safe switches in this meta, and Victini. Victini is still good. The problem is it's really tricky to use if you get a Claydol thrown into you after losing the lead. So when you see my practice battles videos after today's video, on the next video tomorrow, you're probably going to see I'm going to show you why it can be kind of rough. But again, Bronzong, G Rapidash, and Victini are your 3 main safe switches for Psychic Cup. You can use other ones, but those 3 have done pretty freaking well. It's just Victini's a little tricky to use and takes some skill and getting used to operate. For this first team, Bronzong's going to be your safe switch. Malamar will close this out. Malamar is one of the strongest closers, and yes, I love in this cup that Hyper Beam Malamar is the meta. Hyper Beam needs to get the respect it freaking deserves outside of Electrode for the Kanto Cup, if you know what I mean. But amazing coverage. Not a lot of bulk. This team's designed to just literally do damage. Really safe and consistent, though. Overall, Victini is going to be one of your biggest problems. Victini versus Bronzong actually is a very tricky matchup. The reason being is because when you have shields, Victini is going to get debuffed. But here's what happens, and this is what I mean. Assuming you go to the 2 shield, here's what happens. Yes, you beat Bronzong, but you have to use all of your shields, and not only that, you can get farmed down. So what can happen is that if you throw your Victini into the Bronzong, you can get farmed down and they'll have an energy lead for the closing matchup. So you can bait out Victinis with Bronzong, farm down Victini, and then absolutely annihilate your opponent's back row in the closer with energy lead. So, for example, you send in a Malamar against Victini. Because Victini has 0 energy, you can farm it down with Psycho Cut and then literally foul play the unholy crap out of your opponent's back row, assuming they don't have anything that's really strong against your Malamar. Or if you can get the Hyper Beam. So one Hyper Beam will wipe out Shadow Guard from the face of the earth or face of the planet, whichever one you prefer. I prefer the planet because you know what? I hate Charmers, but Charmers are freaking, they're still good. I can't deny it. And I already went over it. Victini is your biggest problem with this team, but like I mentioned, I already showed you why Bronzong isn't necessarily a bad matchup against Victini because of the fact you have to blow your shields. You lose the lead, you say switch into Bronzong, and then Malamar can turn down and close out, and then you have Shadow Guard to just charm down whatever the rest is in the back. Assuming that if it's a Malamar in the back, it's going to get erased pretty dang fast with Shadow Guard. But very low threat score, very powerful team. This is actually one of the first teams I put together, and it's, as you see, has incredibly low threat score. So very basic to use, and if you win the lead, or if you're able to put it up against something like Malamar, or if for some reason your opponent is running Latias or some dragon, yeah, it's going to suck a lot for them. Next up, we have Achu, Bronzong, and Victini. You lose the lead, Bronzong to safe switch, Victini closes out. Victini is good as a switch as well as a closer. V-Create will murder a lot of combinations just because it does so much damage, and with the quick attack buff, it's kind of why Victini flew off my radar. I didn't know quick attack would be buffed, and I didn't know that 5 quick attacks would equal 1 V-Create. So yes, I didn't know that from my early Psychic Cup analysis, but hey, you know what, here we are. Raichu's a strong lead because with Thunder Punch and Wild Charge, you can also run Grass Knot if you want to threaten those Claydolls. If you happen to see a Claydol lead, you can try to break it down, but it's still not a super comfy matchup. Grass Knot's likely for a Hail Mary. Most of the time, though, Thunder Punch and Wild Charge there to go, just because a lot of matchups you can win straight Thunder Punch, or you could Wild Charge, you could chip and dip with Wild Charge and switch into Bronzong. Really safe across the board, a lot of coverage. Both Victini and Bronzong, like I mentioned, function as safe switches, so this is a very safe team. Also covers a lot of the meta. As you see, there's not one thing that will beat this entire meta. They pretty much they cover each other and support each other really well for this combination. I already told you about Alolan Raichu. Alolan Raichu, Claydol is your biggest issue. Against Malamar, Raichu does have a hard time against Foul Play, but if you look in the 2-shield, Malamar actually loses against Raichu. The reason being is you can literally just go straight Thunder Punch. Because of the new buff the new fast move mechanics, those extra volt switches actually matter. And in the 2-shield, Malamar goes down. So that's what really sucks. As you see here, it will win straight Thunder Punch, which is why it makes Alolan Raichu such a beast. However, that doesn't mean Achu doesn't have its fair share of woes. As you see, things like Victini in the lead will give Achu a hard time, especially with those V-Creates, as well as literally Slowking. You're probably not going to Slowking, but however, Alolan Raichu does suffer from the 2-shield problem that every... yes, as you see, 2-shield strat is strong. And you will never live to get your second shield. Yes, you wait... You'll take 1 shield, but you will lose, and they're likely going to get to a Shadow Ball before they take you out. So it's pretty dangerous against Shadow Guard when it comes to Achu. But the good thing is this team has the lowest threat score that I've been able to put together. When I was looking at stuff in combinations, putting it together, Achu in the lead, Bronzong, Victini. Not only is it a super safe team, but it's also very, 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 very non-threatening. As in, things won't threaten you. 377 is a very low threat score. Bronzong and this team really supports each other really well. I would say the only problem is if you're a newer player, you probably don't have an Achu built, and you probably don't have a Victini built. So that's what I would say is the only issue with this team. Achu and Victini, if you're a newer player, you probably don't have access to the mons for this team. So I would say that's the only problem I would say to have when making this team and putting it together. Next up, we have Galarian Rapidash, Bronzong, and Hypno to close out. Hypno is actually one of the strongest closers in this cup because one Shadow Wall will pretty much one-shot most of everything but, I would say, a Malamar. That's pretty much it. Also, you have Fire Punch with Hypno just to take out those Bronzongs. I have Hail Mary Fire Punched in some scrim matches, so Hypno is a very, very interesting, very decent, very good closer. You can also use G Rapidash as a switch, but Galarian stat, I like G Rapidash in the lead. Malamar, for Malamar leads, you can also take out Bronzong with, I mean, not Bronzong. So with Galarian Rapidash, you take out Malamar. You can take out Malamar, you also take out Claydol. And it covers your back row very, very well, except for Victini, just because of Fairy Wind. So in the 2-shield, Victini does beat Rapidash. However, Victini has no energy. This is another funny thing. As you see, Victini has no energy closing out. And because it's triple debuffed, your opponent's probably going to swap out of it, but if they decide to stay it, it's going to get farmed. So, yes, Victini versus G Rapidash isn't super bad. Your opponent is definitely going to be in danger. As far as everything else, G Rapidash as a switch is also very good. It's also good in the lead to break shields. If you get a Malamar lead, freaking great. Malamar, it also does great against things like Medicham. You also take out Hypno. I don't think you'll see a Galarian Slowking, but the 2 ones you'll see probably the most is going to be Malamar and Claydol. Malamar and Claydol is probably going to be the 2 you will encounter the most with Galarian Rapidash. And like I said, even though you lose against Victini, you have versatility. Against Bronzong, yes, Bronzong loses the 2-shield against Galarian Rapidash. You can go straight, well, actually, here's the problem. So you can go straight Mega Horn and then Body Slam. And then you get the dub. The problem is yes, you win alignment, however, you can get farmed down. As you see, with 13 HP left, Galarian Rapidash can get farmed down. For example, even though you win this matchup, they can send in the Victini, farm you down, and then nuke you to oblivion. So that's why even though you do win certain matchups, like with Bronzong, again, you can get straight Mega Horn and then Mega Horn / Body Slam for the dub. However, just be very careful because whatever comes in can farm you down. Luckily, this team has a very, very, very good chance against a lot of the meta outside of HU. So HU is kind of scary because of the, well, actually, you could just stay in with HU. You can stay with HU. Sack Galarian Rapidash and lead, literally go straight Body Slam, and then farm down Alolan Raichu and then close out with Bronzong and Shadow Hypno in the back. You could even send in Hypno to get some extra energy with Confusion because, like I mentioned, outside of a Malamar, Shadow Ball will KO most things in one shot. Alright, so for Team 4, we have Victini, Bronzong, and Malamar. So, Victini is going to V-create its way to victory. This is where you chip and dip. Victini can also be a very annoying lead because, like I mentioned, V-create. You chip and dip, you V-create, and then you switch out into Bronzong, or you can switch out into Malamar, etc. If you see Malamar in the lead with this team, you're probably just going to mirror Malamar and then have Victini close out. So kind of just like realign everything. Because you're not going to switch out of a Charmer. If you see Shadow Guard in the lead, Victini loves seeing Shadow Guard because you literally roast her to death. Literally. Well, actually, Gardevoir can be a dude too, so yeah, you can have a dude Gardevoir too. I don't know, I'll have to change that. But anyways, as you see, this team is it's actually decently bulky. As you see here, very safe, a lot of consistent damage, and it has a decent amount of bulk. You're not going to get a team with B-based bulk in here. I promise you that. Like, you could probably put Hypno and something together, but still, you're not gonna have a ton of bulk in this cup. Victini and its supporting cast cover each other very well. As you see here, there's not a single Mon that actually beats this entire team or gives you a hard time. As your potential threats are going to be Alolan Raichu. Alolan Raichu really likes Victini. I know I already went over this, but as you see, you literally Thunder Punch your way to victory. You literally put in the 2-shield, you can Thunder Punch your way to absolute infamy. The thing about this is that, like I mentioned, you can farm down Alolan Raichu, but the thing is, like, that's 46 HP is still a lot of HP. So what you're going to do here is that you're probably going to fire one, as you see here, and then force the 1-shield, and then you can swap out against Alolan Raichu. Really solid team. Victini, like I mentioned, V-create. This is pretty much just using Victini to lead. Debuff once, or you could double up. You could double up if you want to. Double up and then switch out. So you could double up, switch out with Quick Attack. And Victini is very beastly just because it's able to get to... In 10 turns, you can get to 1 V-create. So thanks to that whole Quick Attack buff. You lose the lead with Victini, you swap out into Bronzong, and then I've already explained what Bronzong does as Safe Switch. Bronzong takes shields, and then what you can do is send in Malamar and Victini to try to close out the matchup by just their insane amount of that consistent charge move pressure that both of them bring in the Psychic. And last but not least, we have ABB. Malamar, Victini, and Delphox. Yes, double fire. If I see a Gardevoir, I'm having a lot of fun. But the thing is, Delphox with Fire Blast is actually very interesting. Against things like, against the steel types, like basically Zong. So Zong, and there's actually nothing outside of water types like Slowbro that resist Fire Spin. So most of the meta outside of the really weird Slowbro you're gonna see, or yeah, Slowbro, Slowpoke, God forbid, or like Arceus forbid if you see one in there, nothing resists Fire Spin. And if you can Fire Blast something, you will KO. And because of the fact that Feint Attack charges so slow, you possibly get to a Fire Blast. But this is Malamar need to break shields, Victini and Delphox to close out. With 2 double fire, you cover Malamar's really sharp charm weakness. And this team is surprisingly good. If you look at all of the checked boxes, there's not one thing that actually beats this entire team or gives it a hard time. You have Victini as a safe switch, and you can throw Delphox in there as a closer to Fire Blast its way to victory, or it can farm things down just because of Fire Spin's damage. Like I mentioned, because nothing actually resists it outside of Slowpoke. I know there's something that resists here, but most of them won't resist it. So you can Fire Spin down and then Fire Blast your way to victory. As you see, it has a pretty high threat score, but that's mostly just because of your back row. Claydol, a little Raichu, there's a lot of things that can break your back row, but with V-Create and Delphox with Fire Blast and even Flame Charge, you can possibly come out with some win conditions. Despite the fact that it does have that high threat score, I've had a lot of fun with this team in practice. Victini as a safe switch is a lot of fun, and it sets out Malifar and Delphox very well for their closing scenarios. And like I mentioned, what I like about it is that Delphox and Victini are very strong against Shadow Gardevoir, or just Guard in general. You love to see Guard with this team, because even though Malamar loses against it, you could switch in Victini, try to win switch, and then have Delphox literally Fire Spin its way to victory and have Malamar beam its way to, or Malamar beams everything to oblivion. Hashtag get beamed. As far as ABB, this is probably one of the only viable ABBs you can see on. You can run double steal. The problem is Victini really sucks if you see double steal. Along with double steal is that you have possibility of Claydol. Claydol versus Victini isn't a terrible matchup. Yes, Claydol wins, however, you have to give up both of your shields. So as you see here, you have to give up both of your shields. And then what you can do is that you can send in Malamar, and then Malamar can go ahead and finish off Claydol. So Claydol, you can send Malamar, and then Malamar will close out with shield advantage, and you can even get a little bit of extra energy in there if you want to. And then, like I mentioned, with Malabar and Delphox, you can possibly close out that matchup. So Bronzong is another story. Zong is another thing you might see thrown into you. If you see a Zong, it's actually great because Victini loves Zong. So Victini is going to absolutely V-Create its way to victory. As you see, Zong loses. I already covered this match, but yes, Zong, it's close, but Zong does lose. And the good thing about it is with Victini is you literally are living with like 1 HP. So this is assuming high IVs too. So you're literally living with 1 HP. So you'll win this matchup, and then they won't be able to farm you down a lot. So you lose the lead, you say switch into Victini, and then Malamar and Delphox close out. And yes, you can get to Fire Blast with Delphox, and it is a glorious flame of doom. Hashtag get blasted. Or no, get beamed. Malamar has beams, yes. Hashtag get beamed. And that's game! As you see, Psychic Cup is somewhat... It's gonna be a little... It's fun. I like it. I like it. I'm not being biased because Malamar has Hyper Beam and Hyper Beam's meta, but hey, you know what? In practice, like this, with a key of this meta is really about like not just knowing your matchups, but also energy management and getting used to taking damage. So energy management and baiting is actually going to really matter here. And like I mentioned, in past battles, you will see just how like this meta kind of folds out on my practice battles tomorrow. But hopefully this gives you an idea of what to run. If you play Malamar Community or Malamar Research Day, it's very good for this cup and for future cups, especially if Psychic Cup does come back. However, if they have a Psychic Cup remix, you're probably going to ban Malamar. So, invest at your own risk, just like with any PvP mon, unless you have millions of dust like I do or a lot of resources from back then when you played before. So. But there are a lot of combinations here that work. A lot of the things, some of the new mons, like, well, pretty much just Galarian Rapidash with its new Fairy Moon move is going to be a very powerful safe switch. And there's a lot of different variety of picks you can use for a Psychic Cup that will actually do very well here. So it's actually really exciting. I hope you're excited for Psychic Cup. I hope you're doing well in Season 12. It's been pretty chaotic with all the new move changes, but it's pretty interesting so far. I like it, which is very rare. I usually am very critical. Actually, I will always be very critical, but you know what? I like it. So, yeah. And I'm looking forward to actually the Psychic Cup coming out and absolutely being my way to victory. Oh my god, it's gonna be so... Hashtag get beamed. It's gonna be so sweet to say get beamed in the Psychic Cup. But as usual, please do me a huge favor. Please like, subscribe, and comment. I hope this gave you a good idea of what to run for the Psychic Cup or how it's going to go. If not, there are going to be practice battles tomorrow, so you can look at those and then try to figure it out there. Or if you have any questions, just put in the comments. I also stream on Twitch on Friday through Monday. I'm being really consistent in the morning. I will stream in the morning. I'm trying to be very consistent. So that being said, good luck on your Go Battle League sets. I hope y'all are enjoying Season 12, and I will see y'all on the next video.